Thanks for taking the time tonight, man. I appreciate it. I just wanted to ask some basic questions as it relates to landscaping, a little bit about the beginning of your story, maybe some tips you might have for small business owners, and I might sprinkle in a couple social media questions. But let's just start with some basic ones. How'd you get started in the landscaping business?
Um, well, it's kind of a long story, but out of high school, I was about 22 years old, and I had a phone call one day. I was had no idea I was going to be doing landscaping. I got a phone call from a guy I used to go to high school with, and he called me. I hadn't heard from him since high school, and he said, "Can you come and fill in for me tomorrow? I got really bad asthma." And so I was like, "Well, I'm not really doing anything tomorrow," and so I said, yeah, and kind of snowballed from there. I started working for the company for many years, doing all the grunt work at first, so, but that's how I started. It was just kind of a random act. I literally didn't, had no idea that my life was going to, eventually change into a full-time landscaper owning the company or anything like that. So
What age were you when you started?
I think I was 22 years old.
Wow. And do you feel like that ground up experience helped you run the business more efficiently just because you had all that hands on experience?
Um, I don't know about that. To be honest, at 22, the first few years when I was just a laborer, um, I wasn't thinking like long term, like I was going to be a landscaper. I was just kind of still in the young kid phase, and so it certainly helped, like, to know like how to physically do the job and stuff like that. But to like know how what it takes to run a company and own a company, I'm not really sure that the first few years and the first couple of years really didn't help a whole lot with that process. Uh,
Yeah. So kind of coming in young, you're kind of still figuring it out as you're going a little bit.
yeah, um, and another kind of part of the story too is I had a ninth grade basketball coach. He was a very interesting guy. His name was Brad Matuzak, and one of the most quiet coaches we ever had. I got along with him great. I was a pretty good ball player, and I was hurt for most of the year. And he would make jokes all the time about some of our. We didn't have a good team. Some of our other players, and so after my ninth grade basketball year, I had not seen or heard of this guy Brad Matuzak. My very first day on the job site, I got in like a big, like a dump truck, like a stake body, and he was the foreman, and I had no idea that he was going to be the foreman. We went to Two Harbors, and the whole way there, he barely said two words to me, which was, he was kind of a quiet guy. I didn't really realize how quiet he was
Sure.
until that day, but and then just things really snowballed. I mean, I worked under him for basically 4 years. He was the foreman, and he had been the foreman for Grussendorf Nursery, I want to say, for over a decade before I even came to the company. So he knew exactly, every ins and outs of like landscape installation itself. And so I certainly learned from him. And then I don't know, I don't want to get too far ahead of any of these questions here, but we eventually became owners.
Wow. So that was going to lead into kind of what I was going to ask next. Along those same lines of like, did you have someone to help you along in this process? Who did you lean on? That kind of thing. Was there anyone other than him? I know that was a big part of it. Was there anyone else you could lean on, at least initially? And I'm talking now as we're going into owning the business, where you could be like, hey, I need a favor for this, or I need help with this kind of thing as it pertains to your business. Was there anybody like that?
Absolutely. There was basically, so Carl Grusendorf, he owned the nursery at the time that I took over, just the landscape portion, not the retail portion. He still did and owned the retail portion, but I owned the landscape portion with Brad. But he was still kind of a mentor, and he had a brother. His name was John Grusendorf, um, who was a basketball coach. Actually, coached my 1 year older brother in high school for a little bit of time, and I kind of just knew who he was because I was at ESCO and he was a basketball coach. He didn't coach me specifically, but the two of them, John Grusendorf was the estimator at the time. He wasn't the owner. He kind of worked for Carl, but he was the brother. And between the two of them, I could ask them any question I wanted to, and they would give me their best advice that they could. And they would go. They still Carl's still alive, and he still goes to our job sites and checks them out after our crews are done. It's something I don't have a ton of extra time, to do. We have 4 crews that go out each day,
Mm-hmm.
and some crews do multiple jobs in one given day. There's no way I could ever have time to like go check on every single job, and he doesn't either. But he still makes it a point nowadays to do that and gives me feedback on how the crew did and maybe what the customer had to say if he talked to them and stuff. So they certainly help. John has passed away, but Carl's still there and he still helps, and he still does a lot of stuff. He does deliveries for his son Eric. At 80, he's 80 or 81, I want to say, years old, and he's still kicking and still going strong, which is kind of an inspiration in a way. Like if he can do it at 80 years old, I mean, he's not doing the physical stuff anymore, but it just makes you think like you better work hard.
Absolutely. At 80 years old, this had me thinking. Has he ever come to you with like a, hey Chris, these pavers at this address not so good this time. Let's fix this. Or
Yeah,
did he come with a little more like witty?
no, it doesn't happen too often, but yeah, he'll just tell me what he thinks, and you know, I 9 times out of 10 I'll agree with him, and even sometimes like he may go check a job and like he'll find it perfect, but I might not find it perfect. Like I'm probably more picky, I would say, than even he is. So like he does a great job of encouraging some of our workers, our laborers and our foremen and stuff after they do a good job and got maybe a good customer review. But still at the end of the day, like if I go see that job and I find anything wrong with it, I'm going to be polite, but I am going to tell you about it, because if I don't tell you about it, how are you ever going to learn and fix it? I am the owner of the company.
Yeah.
Got to do it my way.
Yeah. I think we didn't touch on this. What year did you take over for the business?
Good question.
Roughly, I guess.
Yeah, I would say the year, I want to say it was 2008.
So 2008 now. I mean, that makes sense. So the quality control you speak of, having that attention to detail just on your own. I mean, clearly something's working because you guys are still running. It's 2025. That's quite some time.
It's been a very, very long journey. I still can't believe sometimes like how many years I've been doing it. Like basically since high school, um, my job, it's kind of switched from being a grunt worker to being a foreman for many years, running the crews, to now just we have a lot different sized company than we did. So when we started, we literally had, like, when me and Brad Matuzak had started the company, we had just me, him, and then maybe 2 other employees. And at the time, Brad's back, he was older than me by almost 10 years, and his back was it was getting bad on him. And so I was running just the one crew that we had. Well, the point being is now, all these years later, now we have usually about 12 guys that work for us each summer, and we usually divide that up into groups of 3 roughly. So we have many crews that go out and do it, um, and it's just kind of fun to see, I guess.
I had a question, I guess, when it comes to the seasonal. It's more of like a seasonal employee, then, correct? So you kind of have to do like a layoff
We
come
do,
winter time.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
then,
So go
like,
ahead.
what's the process for a business owner when it comes time to rehire? I mean, I'm assuming you want the same guys back, but like business wise, what are you looking at? I mean, is that the chance where you can be like, this guy didn't really work out last year. Maybe let's try somebody new, or
Yep. Certainly. And there's been many times where like it feels like that we've started with like maybe just a couple foremen from the previous year and maybe one laborer. Well, that means if we're having, we'll say 10 to 12 guys each summer, that means you're finding, maybe 9 guys or so. That hasn't happened very often. That's been pretty rare. We've been very lucky, very fortunate to, like, the last couple of years, we've retained like 8, 9 employees each year. The process of it though would be like, at the end of the year, we try to sit down with the guys, would ask them what their goals are, and tell them, if it's guys that we like, anyways, hey, we want to see you back,
sure.
and what can we do to help you? And we do wintertime stuff as well, called 30 Below Snow Removal. It's company by the same owners, myself and Alex Newberg, but so we do snow removal services, and we don't really have enough work for everybody. But the reason we don't do that is because it's a little bit unreliable to try to find a guy at 3 in the morning. Even though they're great employees,
Yeah.
it's easier to keep it small. We like to keep it small enough almost where if I had to, it would just be me and Alex to get the bare minimum done. Luckily it doesn't usually come down to that, but there's been a couple of times where it kind of came down to that.
So that could be like a little tip then, if you were so as a business owner, people who live in states that experience winter. Obviously, in the landscaping business, you're not doing landscaping in the winter. So somebody trying to get into the snow removal business, that might be a useful tip where it's like, hey, don't stretch yourself so thin that, these odd hours, because we all know how it goes. Snow doesn't just show up when you want it to. Like you
Right.
said, 3 a.m. might just be easier to keep a few guys on, do a few
3
businesses.
a.m. on a Friday night. It's
Right.
Friday right now, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but uh, yeah, I mean it's certainly. But you find your guys, as long as you can kind of tell that they're good people, and even if some of them might have like a party, they're young. I was
Yeah.
22, you were 22 at one point, and
No.
kind of a party lifestyle. You just got to know that guy might not answer on the weekend, and a lot of times, some of our places we do just commercial snow plowing in the wintertime, so some of them aren't even open. Say, for
Sure.
instance, a bank is not open on a Sunday, so you get that snow on Saturday night. Well, it's a little easier to take care of than
Sure.
say a Monday or Tuesday. And if you can't come to work during middle of a weekday, I mean, we usually don't keep you,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
keep you
that's
going. A
totally
lot of them go on
understandable.
unemployment though, and some of them maybe find different jobs for the wintertime and still come back.
Sure.
So there's a little bit of luck, but you got to treat them right, treat them as best you can, and then kind of hope for the best in a way.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch back on this. You mentioned it a little bit about how, who's the current owner again? What'd you say his name was?
Myself and Alex Newberg own the landscaping, Grussendorf Landscaping
Yep. And
Incorporated,
then the
and
nursery. That's what I was going to touch on.
the nursery would be owned today by Eric Grussendorf, who would be the son of Carl Grussendorf. Um, yeah, so he would be the grandson of Deke Grussendorf, the founder, who founded it in 1952.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got some history there.
And I unfortunately I never met Deke Grussendorf. He was gone before I even came to the company. And then there was four brothers. Deke had four sons that owned and operated the company all together. Well, I don't know about owned, but they operated it all together. And I only had a chance to meet two of those four brothers because the other two had already passed away. So
Sure.
Carl and John were the ones I met, and pretty big influence. And John really liked basketball, and as do I, just sports in general. And so even if we at nighttime, we might call, I might have a question or something, but we also talk about the game.
Yeah.
It was just fun.
Yeah. All right. Let's touch a little bit on the business itself and then you as the subject matter expert.
Mm.
So I was thinking more along the lines of when you go to a homeowner, let's say somebody calls you for a quote on something. What's something homeowners or business owners, whoever's looking for your services, what would be a tip from your side that you would say, these are some of the biggest mistakes we see. These are some things maybe that they don't necessarily anticipate when it comes to landscaping, whether that be costs, materials, anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, one thing would be like cost is always one of the things. It certainly is because in landscaping, I feel like our competition is going to be anywhere from a bigger company than ours, maybe with 20 employees or 30 employees. There are maybe a company or two out there that's like that. And then also, though, the competition is going to be a guy in his pickup truck, which is he's going to be in the low end of price. The bigger the company, generally, it's slightly going to, their overhead's a little bit higher. But price is always going to be something that sometimes I just wish that I do ask occasionally, like, hey, what do you have a budget in mind for this? Even though it's kind of a difficult question, because no one
Sure.
wants to give away like, how much they have. They want to get the cheapest price possible, which makes sense. Um, so I feel like there was more to that answer I could have given, but
No, I think you did good. And then I was just curious, kind of more along that same lines. Is there a project you had some time in between, either whether you were just the employee or when you took over up until now, that has sort of changed your perspective on landscaping? Something that maybe was difficult, or I guess what I'm
yeah,
saying is
I,
something that taught you the most.
I don't know about the most, but I guess the one I've had projects before where it's just like maybe challenging in a way, like where maybe it's a retaining wall and it's a natural stone retaining wall. I'm just and I built it too steep because the homeowner wanted enough room for a hot tub, for instance. Let's just say, It did happen. I wish, if I could go back and build it with knowing what I know now, like I would just tell the homeowner, this is not possible. You need to lose a little bit of room, um, and the wall will be structurally integral or better overall, for the long term. But it's still a good wall. It's still holding up good. I actually met with them this past year, and the job was probably a decade ago or so. Just a couple of issues that we had with it, and just things like that. I definitely don't want to get myself or our crews into any sort of dicey situations. I mean, there's always going to be challenges, but if you don't, if I don't think I can do it as owner with all my experience, how do I expect one of my guys to be able to do it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Not
and
to mention you're putting your reputation out there too. It's your business. I mean,
well, yeah,
yeah.
you don't want an insurance claim. Luckily, we really haven't had any of those, or lawyers or anything like that. We
Right.
really haven't had, but other things that I've learned too would be, for the most part, like I hate to, I don't want to brag or anything and say 99% client satisfaction, but I feel like it's about right about there. Somewhere 90+% will say. I don't know what the actual percentage is, but there has been that just few people that no matter what you do, you can't make them happy, and that's just, and you kind of take it on the chin, and you take it personally because you own the company, and I try my best not to on those just very few rare people, but there's just some people that are just mad at life and trying to avoid. You don't always know, going and you do an estimate. Sometimes I only meet the people for 15, 20 minutes. And then, you have let's just say a $5,000, $10,000 job, and then you get done with it and you did every single thing that you were supposed to do. But yet, for whatever reason, they just seem like they have an axe to grind, and maybe they want to. Some people just want to get something free.
Sure.
There's just a few people like that out there, and you got to deal with it as a business owner, and it's not something that you really think about to begin with. I
Yeah.
don't, anyways.
I mean, 17 years in the business, so you could really speak to how that 99%, I wouldn't say that's a far stretch. I mean,
I
17, that's a long time. And then again, on top of that, you're talking about, people looking to get stuff for free. That's just a little bit of a maybe insider tip. You have all these years, so you're kind of used to hearing all of the different stories
Yeah,
people might have or
no. For us, we have like we get thank you cards. When people send their checks in, their invoices, or pay their bills. Um, every single week we probably get a thank you card, and it says, oh, thanks Chris, and thanks crew, maybe a specific name of the foreman or whatever, and I pin it up on a board where everybody can see, and I make sure when they come in the next morning that, hey, I tell them
nice.
great job,
Yeah.
and this is what the customer had to say. I might even say they said great job, but also there's something we need to work on. Maybe it's plant spacing or something, something
Sure.
simple.
I think they probably enjoy that. Okay, so a lot of times you'll hear people talk about, well, if I could go back, and you like to reminisce. Obviously, that's not possible. But thinking along those same lines, if you could go back, something that you've taken from all these years of experience, what was something, and this is hypothetical, but what would be something you could do that you would have liked to have changed, maybe implemented sooner, avoided?
Just avoiding some of those few select customers. They get to me,
Sure.
I'll tell you that. That would be the one. I mean, if you knew right away, like, hey, we had this one client. I don't know how specific to get with this, but we had us plant a bunch of trees. I told him, this isn't the best spot for these trees. Well, I really want them. I want to block out my neighbor. He was so adamant. And I told him it's not really the best spot for him. And we got done with the job, and he just couldn't have been more difficult client to deal with after that. Just not happy, even though we did exactly what he wanted to do. And the crew, and I warned the crew, occasionally we have these people, and I warn the crew beforehand. I say, hey, this customer might be a little bit difficult to deal with. Be nice. I always say that. Be polite. Be respectful. Do what they ask. Um, but even that specific guy, like the crew came back and they weren't happy with me. Like, hey, we all had to put up with it. So I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You would learn from those ones. If I could go back, I definitely wouldn't. I'm not going to say the person's name out loud, but a certain client will say,
I believe it. I believe it. And
never.
then I was just thinking of this for those people who don't know. Is it still the case you guys do the landscaping for the Arrowhead Home and Builders Show, correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's several landscapers that are in.
Mm-hmm.
We'll call it the home show. So there's going to be several that are in there, but there's a modular home that they put together inside there. Another company does, and they have us landscape it for the last probably close to 10 years now. So
Oh, wow.
we've been doing that, and we're planning on doing it again. They already called and asked, so I said yes.
This is more of a question, I guess, on the business side of things. Does that help you guys? I mean, obviously you keep doing it, so there's some benefit, but does that help you bring in more customers? Because then you have, I mean, that show is massive. People walk around.
Right.
There's all this stuff that they see, but
What I would say about the home show is certainly like, luckily we don't have to pay an arm and a leg to be there because we're kind of helping the house building company out, But um, certain years you'll get like a couple of really big jobs from it.
mm-hmm.
Some years you won't. What I would say, if someone was like starting a business, like what you get from it a lot of times is, I hate to say tire kickers, but people are walking around. Not everybody's going there with the intent in mind of there for, like, they're just there because they're bored.
Mm-hmm.
Might be the reason I go to a fishing show, ice fishing show. But my point would be is that, like, let's say we take down a couple dozen names or whatever of clients for
Sure.
people to call. My success rate with those is not near as good as like the people that call into the company, like the people that call in from word of mouth from landscape jobs that we've done.
Yeah.
These are just random, not random people. And we do have customers like that. This past home show, we were going to do a patio for these people, and I told them, come to the show. We got the same exact pavers in our show that we're going to be using for your house this spring.
Mm-hmm.
And just as a customer relations, I said, come to the show. We'd love to see you. And they did, of course, and I had a good time. I mean, they stopped by and they liked the product, luckily, and
Yeah.
the project was a success. They were very happy.
So you think, would it be fair to say then that's also maybe like a bargaining chip? Maybe if someone's coming to you for services and they're kind of feeling you out, if they call you and they're looking for services, you could say, well, you're familiar with the home builder show, we've been doing this for the last 10 years. Is it sort of like you can use it kind of like a, like a reputation kind of thing?
Yeah, a little bit. I will tell if someone's like kind of interested. Maybe I did a quote this fall, and they haven't fully committed to the project. I'll say, stop by the home show, come see us, and then I mean we do a really nice display. It usually gets on the commercial that the Arrowhead Home and Builder Show puts on and stuff. So a little advertising as well there, which is nice. Um, yeah, and it's also just for us, it's kind of this jump start to our guys coming off of wintertime work, going into summertime work.
Yeah.
So it's good to just see all our guys, and it actually kind of gives us a gauge on maybe who's going to be coming back or who's not. If you don't answer the phone and you can't
Sure.
come, and you haven't worked in 5 months, I don't know, you're probably not coming back.
Okay. I guess along those same lines of somewhat advertising, how do you and how does your company, I guess, view social media? Is that something you guys really engage in? Are you not totally there yet? Like, how do you guys kind of use it
Yeah.
today?
Um, we don't really have the nursery. The Grussendorf Nursery has a Facebook page. Um, I don't know how well Eric monitors that. So as far as the landscaping, like, this is actually the first year that we've had our own website. We just finally, after this many years,
Yeah.
luckily for us, most of our advertising, and the best time of advertising is word of mouth. It always is.
Yeah.
Those are going to be the most serious clients. They heard from you that this guy was
Right.
really good or this company was really good. Um, and that's kind of how, if I ever need something done around my house, like, I want to know,
Sure.
not just look in the phone book, or I know you got to look at reviews too and stuff. And but yeah, I mean, it's something that I thought about. It does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, and just haven't had maybe as much time as I'd want
Sure.
to manage that. Managing it in the wintertime when I have more free time would be great, but the summertime I don't have any free time already, and so to try to like keep up on that can be difficult. Um, but yeah, I mean, as far as communicating with clients, nowadays it's text messages, emails, phone calls. I mean, it's everything, which can get kind of,
Yeah.
the text messages I honestly don't really like
Yeah. Yeah. I
because they
could
come from
imagine.
random phone numbers. Look at this shrub from 3 years ago, and I don't save everybody's phone. I don't save anybody's
Right.
phone number.
Yeah. As a
But
small business owner, that'd probably get a little confusing.
if it's an email, it says usually it has
Right.
your name into that email address and maybe a chain of what I don't really delete emails. So I have a chain for, even if it was a few years ago, I
Sure.
would see exactly who you are and what we had discussed. Anyways, that's just some of the challenges, I guess.
So thinking ahead, is there any way or is there any thought maybe that in this world, in this digital world where things are changing so rapidly, has there been any discussion maybe or any real thought put into, should we hire somebody to manage social media, or should we even engage in that? Is there any space for that?
Yeah, actually, so like I said, this is our first year where we hired someone to build our website. So that the company is in charge of, trying. You got to get your website so people can view it, which actually costs money. It takes time as well,
Sure.
which I'm finding out. But as far as like the other aspect, like Facebook or something like that, yeah, we what I've thought about is having like one of my foremans just run the page, because they usually take pictures at the end of
Yeah.
the jobs and stuff themselves. And if I just put one guy in charge, it is an idea, but they work their 40 hours already
Right.
each week, so it's one of those things. Like, does someone want to take it on kind of more on the side? I don't know. It's something I want to have done, but I guess just haven't done it yet. And I actually follow some of the landscape companies on Facebook, and it'll say sponsored on it.
Yeah.
Like, that means they're paying money for it. So
Exactly.
when we talked to the internet company that set up our website, he had mentioned, like, yeah, it's a good thing, but it's just, how many things can
Right.
you can do them all. Like, that's just a lot.
Yeah.
If
So
I was starting over, where like I didn't have the company had already been around for a million years, everybody kind of knew who we were. I would certainly have to do those things. If I was just
yeah.
starting out, I would be doing every single one of those things. I wouldn't be paying money
Right.
like to get to the top or anything, but I would be posting and my pictures of jobs and stuff, and just interactions with different clients.
So safe to say we won't see Grussendorf on TikTok anytime soon.
I don't have a TikTok myself. I don't want to judge anybody who does, but probably not.
Probably not. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So I wanted to touch on, as a business owner, is there anything you could give advice, or maybe some sort of like, I guess advice would be the right word, that you could give to the general public for someone who's trying to start a small business? I know that's kind of a broad
No, that's
spectrum,
fine.
but
Um, yeah, I guess. I mean, do your research. Know what your competition is. Kind of have a plan. Uh, I would say. I mean, I wouldn't know much about someone starting out a business that they haven't really done before, like making cookies. Like, how would I just don't know how to explain that. Like, because I already did landscaping, I knew physically, I knew how to do each job
mm-hmm.
because I had to work for someone. I would say the advice would be work in the field, that you're going to buy the company in, or you're going to start the company in.
Sure.
That's what you'd want to do. You want to get experience, actual experience.
Is there an overall legacy or impact that you'd want to leave on the community as it pertains to your business?
Yeah, um, just beautiful landscapes. Each day I drive around, I might see trees that I planted literally over a decade ago, and makes me smile when I see like a tree just doing great. I don't know, and so that would be something that when you landscape someone's house, like I still go to houses where uh, the previous generations of Grussendorf's landscaped decades ago, and some of the shrubs or the bushes or whatever are still alive and doing well, and happy clients, of course. And not everybody knows me personally, so they'll be like, "Oh, your dad or your grandpa, did this so many years ago, and it still looks like this." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." Sometimes I play along. Yeah, my dad did a good job.
The
Uh,
legacy holds up, then you can't argue with the success. Thank you for your time today, man. I really appreciate
yeah, thanks for having me. It was not as bad as I thought it was going to be, so
it.
I think you did all right.